You're not going to believe this. So on this next portion right here that you're about to watch, you're about to find the founder of the Hasid movement. His name was Baal. Baal Shem Tov.
In its wake, a massive following of Jews flocked to the charismatic Rabbi Shabtai Tzvi in hopes of redemption, only to be left hopeless and betrayed when he converted to Islam. Many Jews were so poor that they couldn't spare time to study the Torah or practice their religion. Into this gap stepped a most unusual man, the Baal Shem Tov. The early decades of his life are shrouded in mystery. He may have studied with secretive Jewish mystics, and he likely supported himself by mining for clay.
Tanya is the seminal work, it's the primary work of Chabad Hasidus. So to understand really what Tanya is all about, we have to understand what Hasidus is all about, and it's a little bit of history. So if you go back to, I actually wrote an article about it in the Mosaic, that's why I have it here. So look at the dates. Late 1600s, and then through the late 1600s, and then later in the mid 1700s, there was the Shabtai Tzvi movement. The movement began by Shabtai Tzvi, which declared himself a messiah, and he led many Jews astray. And then he was in the late 1600s, and then in the 1700s, it was his successor, Jacob Frank, who claimed to be reincarnation or something like that of Shabtai Tzvi himself. And he took a lot of Jews, and there was a lot of heresy that came along with that. And he was using language of Kabbalah. That's one thing that happened at that time. So there was a spiritual threat, if you will, within the Jewish world. In addition to that, during this time, there's a lot of poverty and social distress. And Jews are not in a wealthy state. You know, today, relatively speaking, we're in a very wealthy state. But back then, Jews were not like that. So what ended up happening is, because of this social poverty and the spiritual threats, what ends up happening is the educated and the wealthy few start to insulate, right? Because there's all these threats from the outside. So what ends up happening is when there's all these threats from the outside, you end up insulating more and more. So over time, what happened is this culture started to look down at the masses of Jews. The Jews the mass of uneducated Jews were looked down upon. And what was celebrated in these circles was scholarship and piety, at least self-perceived piety. As opposed to my service of God becoming my source of humility, my Torah itself becomes a source of my detriment, my own ego. And that's what happens in these cultures, that's what happened at least then, where these scholarly elite who, look down on all these simple things, they can't read Hebrew, God doesn't know me, I'm a pious man, who knows what God thinks about me? So in this climate, the Baal Shem Tov comes along and goes from town to town, small towns, and starts preaching to these simple Jews that God loves you, you have a soul, and you're infinitely precious to Hashem, and the smallest thing you do is the most precious thing in God's eyes. This was a threatening version of Judaism, especially considering the fact that he was using language of Kabbalah, and the memory of Shabtai Tzvi is fresh in their minds. And Shabtai Tzvi's movement, which led people astray, was using Kabbalistic language. So they looked at the whole Hasidic movement. This was where the opposition to the Hasidic movement.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Stein. I'm an out and proud transgender, queer, formerly Orthodox Hasidic Jew.
When you think of New York City, what comes to mind? Is it bright lights and billboards, crazy fashion, or guys dressed like Elmo in Times Square? What if I told you that there's a whole nother side to New York City, one that is often left unnoticed? A short walk from Manhattan over the Williamsburg Bridge, south of Hipsterland, is home to the most concentrated Hasidic Jewish community in America. Hasidic Jews moved to this part of Brooklyn around the time of World War II, many escaping harsh living conditions in the Lower East Side, and many of them Holocaust survivors themselves. As a Jewish traveler, I've wanted to visit this neighborhood for decades. Now I'm finally here, and I could not be more excited about my guide. I teamed up with Abby Stein, a Williamsburg native who left the Hasidic world behind to live her truth as a transgender woman. Today, she is an author, activist, blogger, model, speaker, and rabbi. And did I mention she's a direct descendant of Hasidic Judaism's founder?
I never really struggled with my gender identity. I always felt like I'm a girl. My realization was a lot more, oh, everyone thinks I'm a boy.
Abby Stein was born and raised as a male in the Hasidic community of Williamsburg. She went from being a rabbi to a trans woman and activist.
At the time, I was already married and I had a son. By the time we started expecting my son, gender started getting really hard on me once again. If it's gonna be a boy, it's gonna be a girl. What if my baby is gonna be just like me and the doctors are gonna say one thing, but in reality, it's gonna be another thing. It started punching me in the face. Everything that I've done up to that point to make it work, such as trying different prayers and hoping everything is just gonna go away, it didn't work anymore. And they're a very sheltered community that can only survive if you don't ask questions. Now I actually had these questions. I was like, I need to find answers. And I knew I'm not gonna find these answers in a kosher place, so to speak. One of the things that I knew exists that is this really, really terrible place is the internet.
In Abby's community, the internet was a threat to all their traditions and values. In 2012, 40,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews packed Citi Field to rally against the dangers of the internet.
My father is the 10th generation of the founder of the Hasidic movement. It was a very sheltered community. There was no access to internet, TV, movies. I found a public bathroom in a shopping center that had internet, and I just started sitting there for days. The way they keep you is by keeping you ignorant. I basically followed the very traditional path of, I guess, manhood within the Hasidic community. I got married when I was 18, and I had a son a year after we got married. In the beginning, I was still living in the community. When I opened my first Facebook account under a female persona, I was still married. Talking to people online was really helpful. Before I started hormones, I started a new blog called The Second Transition. I posted my coming out post, and more people started reaching out. And I actually started a support group first on Facebook for people who come from an Orthodox background. That would have never happened without the internet and social media.
If you know anything about Baal, Balenciaga, Baal means Moloch, the dark god, Babylonian god, or some religions call him Shaitan or things of that sort. So, the founder of the Hasid movement, his name was Baal Shin Tov. So, this is going to cover about the Shabbat movement, and there's two different types of Hasidic movements, and one of them is the Lavor Hasidic movement, and they seem to be fleeing and running elsewhere, and they've been accused all throughout Israeli media of being like a bad sect of Hasid, but they're welcomed in Iran, they're welcomed in Canada, and they move to different places, and they kind of accuse them of the same things that they accuse the hummus as doing, which grape and all this type of stuff. I don't know why those accusations are very heavy being purported by everyone else. It's kind of a random thing to keep accusing someone of either being a Nazi, Hitler, or grape.
The Ohio rabbi accused of sexually assaulting a 12-year-old Baltimore County girl had his day in court today.
And tonight, a rabbi accused of molesting a child is now allowed to remove his GPS ankle monitor while on house arrest.
Jewish rabbi here in Salt Lake City, and he may be the first rabbi to actually open up about suffering sexual abuse as a child.
Administrators and guidance counselors are having serious discussions with students and parents at Salanter Akiba Riverdale Academy, also known as SAR, a modern Orthodox Jewish day school. Rabbi Jonathan Skolnick, who since last year served as middle school principal of Judaic Studies, was arrested Friday by the FBI for charges related to soliciting child pornography. He's since been fired. A criminal complaint from the U.S. Attorney's Office alleges Skolnick posed online as different teenage girls using names like Tina Warner and Anna Fried to coerce a 14-year-old boy to send him sexually explicit photos.
crimes of child sex abuse have shocked Australia.
Cardinal George Pell has begun giving evidence.
YMCA failed to adequately check a
Now,
childcare worker's...
one devout religious community is in the spotlight.
Absolutely no one is above the law.
For the first time, what really happened inside an ultra-Orthodox Jewish sect.
We are being screwed by the community.
And shocking new revelations.
I don't recall. He just got that close to perjuring himself. That close.
Secret recordings and a cover-up to protect the predators.
You assaulted me out there.
A sordid scandal played out at a royal commission.
Did you understand it was against the law for an adult to touch the genitals of another child?
I didn't know that as a fact.
Shocked. I mean, did he really say that?
All right. New victims speak out.
Yeshiva has not ever reached out to me and apologized to me.
Whistleblowers pay a hefty price.
It felt like we were suddenly reduced to nothing.
While one paedophile finally goes public.
When I was young, I was also a victim of sexual child abuse.
Is it right for me to sit with any perpetrator?
This is the story of crimes, conspiracies and cover-ups.
For 4 years, you've done absolutely nothing.
You stood by and let the misconceptions fester.
That's your opinion.
And how victims are making sure it never happens again.
He's here.
But yeah, most people sometimes project certain things that they're doing themselves. So anyhow, enjoy this portion.
Insufficient papers to work a real job and rapidly depleting shelters available, it's no surprise the migrants are doing whatever they can to survive, with some alleging they were even employed to dig secret underground tunnels under a famous Jewish synagogue.
Is it true they found some secret tunnels in the Jewish...
They were asking me about that.
I just know that there's tunnels and that there's this one video of this guy coming out of the sewer.
What is this? Look at them all. Oh my God.
Jews, they're getting some bad PR lately.
Oh, bro, where is this guy going, dude? To get a rebate. Yeah, what the f were those guys doing in those tunnels?
They want to fix this tonight. They need the truth clear. We don't do that in America.
Here's what they're doing is they're saying the 770 tunnels were used to traffic kids. All kinds of crazy rumors saying there's blood on the mattress that was pulled out the wall. Like all kinds of crazy.
A hidden tunnel was discovered under a synagogue right in the heart of Brooklyn. Hard to believe, right? Let's dig deeper into the story.
Directly to the tunnel.
Sorry, we're supposed to show an actual tunnel video. It all started when videos began circulating on social media, primarily on X, showing an altercation between Jewish Hasidic men and New York police following the discovery of a secret tunnel under the global headquarters of a Jewish movement named Chabad Lubavitch, commonly known as 770.
For years, this site at 770 Eastern Parkway was led by this world-famous rabbi, known simply as the Rabbi, who created all this. He died in 1994, but until then he had been arguing for this site to be expanded, saying we need more space. It's actually a pretty cramped space for the number of followers who are there. Well, there are some members of this sect who believe that the Rebbe's not dead. In fact, they see him as a living Messiah, and so in honor of him, there are even disputes over whether they should put a plaque up at the synagogue saying he was dead, because some people said no, he's not.
Most of them believed he would never die. They still believe Rabbi Menachem Schneerson will be physically resurrected as Mashiach, the Messiah.
A physical resurrection when he's going to come back in his full glory imminently and redeem the entire world.
They got buckets. What the fuck?
Yeah, there was like a mattress that got pulled out that's a part of the news because people are saying there's blood on it.
It was full of blood.
What the fuck? What were
Look at the baby. Look at the baby stuff.
What were they doing down there?
It's a trafficking ring.
Clear why the tunnels were built.
Is it really?
Yes.
Look at this. They were going in.
There's baby clothes everywhere.
What the fuck? Yo, that shit is... Wow, how far were they going down? Property manager called in to fix the damage. They fucked it all up.
The Rebbe never visited Israel, not once, and yet from his home in Brooklyn, he was able to influence Israeli politics.
הבטיחו לי בוודאי כמה הבטחה שמכל השיחות תהיינה כל עניינים של ויתור על שטחים.
His influence was recognized by American politicians too. US presidents paid homage to him, establishing and proclaiming a National Education and Sharing Day in honor of his birthday.
And please give my warmest regards to the Rebbe on this his 86th birthday.
Menachem Mendel Schneerson was born in 1902 in the Black Sea port of Nikolaev, which was part of the Russian Empire but now part of Ukraine. He and his wife lived in Berlin and Paris before fleeing the Nazis in 1941, seeking refuge in New York, where they put down roots. A decade later, in 1951, he took over the Chabad movement from his father-in-law, who died the previous year. Menachem Schneerson revived and grew the movement for over 40 years until his death in New York in 1994. His followers in Brooklyn were devastated.
Currently, the center of the Chabadic movement is in Brooklyn, in a neighborhood called Crown Heights. So it is an American movement in terms of its center, but it is also a global movement. One of the biggest purposes of Chabad is to bring those quote-unquote lost Jews back into Judaism. So Chabad has its own rabbis and emissaries appointed all around the world. It is a global movement.
Headquartered in Brooklyn, the Chabad movement has a presence in every state in America and in over 100 countries around the world, with a particularly high focus in Europe and in Israel. A couple of years after this meeting, the Rebbe reportedly told a young Netanyahu that he would one day become Prime Minister of Israel and would be the nation's last leader before handing the scepter to the Messiah. Netanyahu is once again relying on religious language to rally the country.
The Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war. ארצות הברית זה לא מקשה אחת, זה לא מקשה אחת. יש את הסנאט, יש את הקונגרס, יש את הכוח היהודי שהוא עצום, יותר חזק משהיה אי פעם. יש דעת קהל, יש לנו כוחות כבירים בדעת הקהל שמתנגדים למדיניות הזאת, גדולי הפרשנים. אמריקה לא תכפה עלינו דבר.
How he coming to speak in the name of the Torah, in the name of the Jewish religion, when he don't believe in the Torah, he don't believe in God?
Benjamin Netanyahu is known to be a secular Jew, but he certainly saw the value in being associated with the Rebbe.
Hey guys, if you want to watch more clips, click here.
If you want to watch the full podcast, click right here.